After stealing Alicia's baby and throwing it into a dark pit, Clara, the second and jealous wife, felt a twisted satisfaction in her heart. She thought she had gotten away with her evil deed. Her face twisted into a smile as she walked back to the house, making sure to act like everything was normal. No one would know the truth. No one would find out that she was the one who had taken that precious child from Alicia. She would keep her secret buried deep inside, just like the baby she had discarded. But Clara didn't know that in the darkness, hidden from her sight, there was a man watching her every move. He had seen everything, from the moment she took the baby to when she tossed it away like garbage. He couldn't see what exactly she had done, but he knew something wasn't right. Something about that night would haunt him forever. Meanwhile, Alicia, the first wife, was drowning in sorrow. She cried every day for the child she had longed for, the baby she had struggled for years to conceive. Now someone had stolen it from her and ended its life. The pain was unbearable, but Alicia swore to herself through the tears and heartache that she would never let this go. Whoever had done this to her innocent baby would pay. She would find out the truth. She would get justice. One day, the stranger who had seen Clara throw the baby into the dark pit found himself standing in the same market as her. He had been watching for days, knowing exactly who she was, knowing the truth that Clara thought was buried forever. She stood in front of the stalls, picking out goods, blissfully unaware that her past was about to catch up with her. He moved quickly, weaving through the crowd until he was standing right in front of her. Clara looked up, surprised to see a stranger, but before she could react, he spoke in a whisper that only she could hear. "I know what you did to that little baby. I saw you with my own eyes, and I have the evidence." Clara staggered back as if she'd been struck. The words hit her hard, her mind spinning as she tried to comprehend what was happening. She had been so careful, so meticulous in covering her tracks. But this man, this stranger, had seen her. He knew. Her heart began to race, panic crawling up her throat. This was it. The secret she had fought so hard to keep buried was on the verge of coming out. Her face went pale, but she quickly masked it with anger. She couldn't let this man destroy everything she had worked for. She could not let him expose her. Clara steadied herself, forcing the words out, her voice dripping with cold venom. "I will pay you to keep your mouth shut. Just tell me your price." The stranger's eyes gleamed with greed, and he could barely contain his excitement. He had the power now. He had control over Clara, and it was intoxicating. He hadn't expected her to offer money, but when she did, he knew this could be his chance to get rich. He smiled and stated an amount, far more than he had ever seen in his life. The thought of it made his pulse quicken. The money was his, and he was willing to forget everything for it. Clara's face remained unreadable, but inside her mind was calculating. She needed to make sure this man stayed silent, but she couldn't just bribe him and leave him alive. No, she had other plans. The truth could never come out, not while she still breathed. "I will bring the money to you," Clara said, her voice smooth and cold, "but I will bring it in cash, by myself, and I'll bring it to your house." The man, intoxicated by the promise of wealth, didn't see anything wrong with it. He thought nothing of it. He was going to be rich. What could go wrong? He smiled, his mind already filled with visions of how he would spend his newfound fortune. He didn't know that he was already signing a deal with death. The man left the market with a spring in his step, his thoughts completely consumed by the money he was about to receive. He didn't know the full extent of what was coming. Clara had given him the money, yes, but her intentions were much darker. She needed him out of the picture and needed him to disappear before he could say a word. He had seen too much, and now he was about to pay the ultimate price for his greed. Clara watched him leave, her expression hardening. The deal was set, but there was no way she would allow him to live long enough to spill her secret. She would end this, just like she had ended the baby's life. No one would ever know what she had done. Alicia, on the other hand, was certain she knew who had killed her baby. She felt it deep in her bones that Clara was responsible. Every instinct in her screamed that the jealous second wife was behind it all. But there was one problem. Alicia didn't have the evidence. She had tried to convince her husband, Mr. Bernard, countless times. She had begged him to see the truth, but he just couldn't believe it. After all, Clara was the second wife, and in his eyes, she couldn't possibly be capable of such evil. Alicia's heart broke every time her husband dismissed her, his blind loyalty to Clara clouding his judgment. Meanwhile, Clara was already planning her next move. The very next morning, she left the house early, clutching a small bag in her hands. Inside the bag was the bribe she had promised to the stranger, but it wasn't just money she carried. No, Clara had other plans. She had packed 2 drinks, one filled with poison, the other just neat, as if to celebrate their twisted agreement. She was going to make sure that no one would ever find out about her secret. She would eliminate anyone who knew too much. As she walked, the early morning silence weighed heavily on her. The streets were empty, the fowls still asleep in their coops. It was the perfect time for her to act, quiet, unnoticed, before the world awoke. She moved swiftly toward the man's location, her steps purposeful, knowing that she had to finish this. When she arrived at the man's house, she found him waiting, eagerly anticipating the bribe that would make him rich. The door creaked as Clara entered, her presence as cold as the air around her. She walked straight to him, the bag of money in her hands. Without a word, she handed it over. The man eagerly checked the contents, and his face lit up as he saw the cash. His smile widened. "This is it," he thought. "I'm going to be rich." But Clara had other plans. She pulled out the 2 drinks, offering one to the man with a smile. "This is to toast for our deal," she said, her voice smooth and calculated. She handed him the poisoned drink, watching closely as he took it without hesitation. He was too blinded by greed to see what was coming. He had no idea what kind of woman he was dealing with. Clara watched him greedily gulp down the drink, her heart racing with excitement. She didn't even flinch as she saw him swallow the poison. This was it, the end of the line for him. She had no intention of letting him live to tell anyone what he had seen. As the minutes passed, the man began to feel strange, his face twisted in discomfort as the poison took hold. He tried to stand, but his legs gave way, and he collapsed to the floor. Clara's cold laughter filled the room as she watched him struggle. She felt no remorse, only satisfaction. He had sealed his fate the moment he had asked for the money. With a final painful gasp, the man fell silent. Clara reached down and snatched the money from his lifeless hands, tucking it away safely. "No one comes close to my secret," she whispered to the dying man, her voice barely audible. Her heart pounded with triumph as she left the house, her steps quick and steady, disappearing into the shadows before anyone could find out what had happened. Now, the greedy man was dead, and her secret remained just that, her secret. No one would ever know what she had done. No one would ever know that she had taken the life of an innocent baby and the man who could have exposed her. As she walked away, she felt the weight of her actions settle over her like a dark cloud, but for Clara, it didn't matter. She had won. After the death of the young man who had held the evidence against Clara, she felt a twisted sense of freedom. She thought that she had finally escaped the consequences of her actions. Her secret, buried deep in the darkness, would never come to light. No one would ever know the horror she had committed. But she was wrong. The innocent baby, whose life she had stolen, could not rest. The child's soul, torn from the world too soon, cried out for justice. It wasn't long before Clara began to feel the weight of that cry on her conscience. Strange things began to happen. At night, when she was alone, she could hear it, a sound faint at first, like the soft wail of a baby crying. It was haunting, unsettling, and no matter how hard she tried to ignore it, it only grew louder with time. Sometimes she would ask the people around her if they heard it too, but they would only look at her like she was mad. "No," they would say, shaking their heads. It was real. At first, it was just the crying, but as days turned into weeks, Clara's nights became a battlefield. Her dreams turned into nightmares, vivid and terrifying. She would dream of countless babies, their faces twisted in sorrow, chasing her relentlessly, their tiny hands reaching for her, calling her name. She would run in panic, but no matter how fast she moved, they were always right behind her. Blood stains marred their clothes, their cries echoing through her mind. She would wake up drenched in sweat, her heart pounding in terror. She couldn't escape. Every time she closed her eyes, those babies were there, hunting her, demanding justice for what she had done. The fear took hold of her. tightening its grip with each passing night. She couldn't sleep for more than a few minutes without being haunted by their cries. It was driving her mad, but Clara couldn't tell anyone. She couldn't explain the horrors that plagued her. She couldn't tell them that the ghosts of her crime were chasing her down. Meanwhile, Alicia, the first wife, prayed every night. She prayed for justice, for the truth to come out, for the person who had killed her child to face the consequences. Her prayers were constant, relentless. She begged God to make things right, to expose the evil that had been done. And it seemed that those prayers were working. Clara's torment grew worse. What started as strange baby cries and nightmares became something far more terrifying. The babies weren't just in her dreams anymore. They were in her waking hours too. During the day, she would see them, tiny, invisible figures moving around her, their cries filling her ears. It made Clara look like a madwoman. She would scream at them, running from one room to another, trying to escape their grasp. "Evil babies! Evil babies!" she would shout, her voice filled with panic. She ran around in circles, her hands waving frantically as if she could somehow outrun them. It was enough to make Alicia and Mr. Bernard look on in shock. They couldn't understand what was happening. But Alicia, with her broken heart, knew deep down the dead baby was at work. Clara's madness only grew. The invisible babies chased her, tormenting her, pushing her further into insanity. They demanded justice, and Clara, trapped in her own guilt, couldn't escape. No matter where she went, they were there. Always, relentlessly. It wasn't long before her torment reached its peak. One day, the invisible babies chased her all the way to the highway. She was running, screaming, desperate to get away from the haunting cries, when a car, speeding down the road, struck her. Clara fell to the ground, her body lying lifeless in the middle of the road. Her death was as shameful as her life had been. No one would ever know the full extent of her evil, but in her final moments, she was forced to face the consequences of her actions. When Mr. Bernard arrived on the scene and saw Clara's body, everything clicked. The pieces of the puzzle fell into place. He realized with crushing certainty that Clara was responsible for the death of their child. He understood, too late, that he had made a terrible mistake by taking a second wife. If only he had been more patient with Alicia, if only he had trusted her. But now it was all too much. The regret weighed on him heavily. 3 months after Clara's death, Alicia found out she was pregnant again. This time it wasn't just one child. It was twins. The joy that filled her heart was beyond words. After all the pain, after the suffering, she was finally going to be a mother again. Alicia gave birth to 2 healthy, beautiful babies. Their cries were the sweetest sound she had ever heard, a symbol of hope and new beginnings. She held them close, her heart swelling with love. The past, with all its pain and loss, began to fade into the distance. She had her family now, and nothing could ever take that away from her. And so, they lived happily after. Clara's greed, jealousy, and impatience had cost her everything. In the end, those who live by evil find nothing but ruin.